We get into the closed beta of Chrono Odyssey, and there is a lot to talk about after playing about 15 hours. Chrono Odyssey set high expectations with bold promises of freedom, depth, and innovation. The devs pitched a dynamic, living world where time manipulation shapes exploration and narrative. Exploration was supposed to be organic and immersive, driven by lore fragments and evolving zones that react to player actions. Group content was to scale dynamically, with puzzle-heavy dungeons and massive field bosses. Even solo players were meant to thrive by progressing purely through gathering, crafting, or non-combat roles, in a player-driven economy where every profession mattered. So here's the thing. For a game expected to release this year, this build isn't even close to being ready. And when even the CEO comes out to state that the game build was one from last year, you know, people aren't amused. Although an early build might explain a few issues, the devs are also simultaneously asking for feedback on core systems. That tells us that this isn't just a tech test. They are still unsure about big parts of the game, while their design is already settled. While an alpha generally showcases a concept, a beta is much further developed, and the final stress tests guarantee stability. And that's the concern, because what's here needs way more than a few months of polish. It needs a stronger foundation, meaning, and depth. Systems that actually engage and value your time.
Let's start with the obvious: visuals. The setting is great. Time manipulation, dark fantasy, and even horror elements making for a compelling mix. Stylistically it stands out. If, and that's a big if, you have the hardware for it. Unfortunately, even then, the optimization is rough. While a 4080 can barely maintain a stable 40 to 60 FPS, everything below has to tune down its settings significantly. Unfortunately, it makes the game look worse without noticeably improving the performance. Which is wild for a game that has been 6 years into development. Unreal Engine 5 has been out for 4 years by now, and this build barely feels like it's using any of its capabilities. Even worse, some aspects look like poor implementation of in-house tech, like the incredible reflections that leave you blinded if you face into the wrong direction. Other than that, we're talking about terrain popping, rough shadows with a life of their own, and some areas that straight up feel unfinished. Somehow, even on cinematic settings, you see frequent low-res textures and polygon-shaped models, and we even managed to fall through the world. So the material we saw previously was either from a much further developed build or recorded somewhere at NASA's headquarters. But to be honest, although not exactly pretty, this isn't even our main concern at the moment. Because the environment itself has some character and feels handcrafted at its core. At least in the first few hours, this doesn't feel like just another copy-paste asset MMO like New World, where you meet the same few houses in every town you go. Locations feel like someone actually cared when they built them. Unique shapes, thoughtful layouts and paths with frequent hidden treasures in between. A big plus for immersion. There are quite frequent dynamic events all over the world, but they repeat quickly, and right now it feels like there are only about 3 different types in total.
Getting around the huge world, though, is not as great. There's no fog of war, instead the map relies on weirdly blurry textures that just look cheap. The game has no minimap, just a top-screen compass that often loses its track target. And that's a problem when quest objectives say stuff like "go to the cave" and don't tell you which cave. Even with a good sense of direction, you get lost frequently, which is not challenge, that's just unclear design. Quests themselves are standard MMO quality. Go here, kill that, bring this back. The main story starts strong. Big world-ending event, time gets rewound, but there's no emotional involvement. Characters die just seconds after you met them. You're dropped into tragedy with no context or reason to care. It's a good idea, but without connection or pacing, it falls flat. After a few story quests, you're dropped into your first Chrono Gate, where you have to defeat a boss. Somehow, the game even anticipates you to lose, over and over again, until you respawn outside where the quest then continues. Odd choice. So now you need to level up and get some gear, and that's where the real problems begin. You're in a sandbox after all, so your most prominent choices are either combat or life scaling.
Combat is built around your class, which dictates what weapon you can equip. Each weapon has its own skill set that you need to unlock by using the weapon. You can equip 2 weapons at a time and are supposed to switch between them to get the most out of it. This system could be deep, but early on, most skills are locked. The few you have unlocked so far either cost a lot of resources or have long cooldowns, so you're auto-attacking most of the time. There is not much satisfaction or strategy in the flow, at least not early on. Unfortunately, the enemies are no delight either. The AI often just leaves them standing around taking your beating. But from time to time you come across the occasional boss, which then again fries you in an instant. The time powers, which should be a highlight, also barely show up at this stage. And when they do later on, they're gated behind minutes of cooldowns. Loot is another letdown. Most of the mobs don't even drop anything. But if you get a good gear drop for once, you can't use it for 10 more levels. So you end up hoarding stuff you can't equip while grinding mobs that feel repetitive and unrewarding for hours on end. Because whatever you decide to do, everything gives so little XP, be it for your character or your weapons, that you spend hours filling bars.
Let's say you skip combat and try life skilling instead. Yes, you can level up purely by gathering and crafting. They promise letting you shape your adventure however you want after all. But the system is probably the most undercooked of all and left much to be desired. Gathering is supposed to be one of the core aspects of life skilling. But what could have been an interactive system with mini-games and quick-time events ended up being a waiting game. You just walk up, press a button, and wait for minutes. 2 minutes to be precise if we talk about rare nodes. Upgrading your gear seemingly changes nothing either. It gives you more mastery, but that again changes nothing noticeably. You can level up gathering, but again, it's not clear what the benefit is. You don't get faster or more efficient, it just happens. On top of that, gathering nodes are not shared, so whoever gets there first claims it. And all spawning points are always the same, which is a bot magnet from day one. Unfortunately, crafting isn't much better. You add materials, hit craft, and hope for it to turn out good. No crafting skills and barely any influence aside from one optional ingredient to the recipe. No gear tweaking, no crafting identity, just RNG outcomes. This stuff could have added massive value, especially if you wanted to play a non-combat role. But right now, it's just filler. Nothing like the valuable player-driven economy they've talked about. We would have loved to see something closer to Final Fantasy XIV, where crafting is practically its own game. But this is not even close.
Probably the best system in the entire game is the character creator. Deep sliders, tons of variation, everything feels distinct and you can really make something unique. But maybe that's just too much freedom, because within minutes we saw bright green trolls with nonsense names jumping around like a circus. So if you're after immersive dark fantasy, the tone breaks fast. Gear does have visual variety, that's good, but most of the early stuff looks generic or bland. And if cosmetics end up in the cash shop, which seems likely, you're back to the classic MMO issue. Either pay up or look like the classic Black Desert Bush. There is this big promise of a vast explorable sandbox, and yeah, the zones are big and look unique. But the world feels like it wants to be alive, but nothing really is. Mounts are static, no idle animations, even though they are animated in the stable menu. Wildlife is either completely pacifistic or running around like someone pressed the fast forward button on the remote. And so do almost all of the NPCs. That weird engage-disengage running in triple speed, reminiscent of early World of Warcraft guards. At least there is multiplayer, wouldn't be much of an MMO without it. You can group up, join guilds and explore together. There's a party UI, shared map markers, basic emotes and a chat. Not bad when compared to other games we played lately. But instanced content like dungeons require a full party of 3 or 5, or no party at all. No dynamic scaling, so if you're a duo, tough luck, unless you pull in strangers. All story instances are solo only, which is a bummer, since after your first Chrono Gate dungeon, you get tasked to find and clear your second one. After which you get tasked to find and clear your third one. See a pattern yet? And since there is also no trading, at least not yet, there is no way to help each other out. So if you are playing with a friend and one of you hits a wall, the other one has to wait as there is no shared progress. That kind of restriction really kills teamwork in what's supposed to be a social game.
There are also so many systems that just seem to exist. Like achievements. They give rewards, which you can collect, but there's just nothing you get. No XP, no currency, no materials, just a check mark, and that's it. There was no cash shop active in the beta, But with Kakao involved, there's the obvious concern. They've promised no pay to win. But what that actually means, especially in a game built around grind, remains to be seen. Chrono Odyssey could be something special. The world design has charm, the concept has potential, especially with the time theme at the core. But this build, it's not ready. Not for beta, definitely not for release this year. The core systems currently feel too shallow, with an unrewarding grind, time-consuming life skills, and restrictive group content. There's just not enough to sink your teeth into. Hopefully, the devs take the time, real time, to build this out, listen to feedback, and deepen the systems. In terms of performance, it would be nice to party up with other people than NASA employees. And we'd genuinely love to see gathering, life skilling, and combat evolve into something closer to Black Desert or Final Fantasy XIV. Systems that are so engaging they are fun to play on their own. Because when you look past the current state, there is a world there with character, a setting that's worth exploring. It just needs the systems to make that journey meaningful. But that's it for this one. Did you play the beta? Share your opinion below, and we hope to see you again in the next one.